Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built. A lot of you saw this in a previous episode and wanted to know more about my 100-year-old abandoned guillotine. So those of you following my channel know that I was looking for a lathe for a while, and I managed to actually find one. An old guy named Curl had it not actually too far from me, and when I went out to pick up the lathe, I noticed in the back of the shed was this, and after digging through I realised what it was, and it was an old guillotine. This is actually something that was made in Sydney, which is not too far from here, around 100 years ago. I'm not sure exactly on the age of it, but it's probably around that. And when I got it, it didn't work. For starters, how this machine originally ran was the big flywheel over on the end would run via a big leather belt up to a shaft that ran through the top of these old workshops, and those shafts would be run by some other big engine somewhere, and all these belts would run all these different machines, and that's how this one ran. But it doesn't run like that anymore. So the first thing I had to do to get this thing actually running was, well, first of all, get it into the workshop, which was a challenge in itself because the thing is so heavy. I had to use my engine crane to sort of try and get it off my trailer and carry it into the workshop, which was a whole ordeal. But once I got that going, I had to work out how I was going to get it running. Now, Kel actually sold me the motor he used for it at the time, and that's it right down here, and a couple of belts, and he just had it set up on the floor in his workshop, and he couldn't remember how he set it up. So the way I did it is I got some treated pine logs that I just had lying around, lifted the whole machine up on that, and it extended out far enough that I could actually bolt the motor in on the end of this on this pine log, so that I've got enough tension in the belts to actually run the machine, and that seems to do the job. So it was a bit of work doing that, again with the engine crane, getting this thing up in the air, because there's no way I'm lifting it. It is really heavy. And when I first started it up, it really scared the bejesus out of me. And I'll show you why. When I first started it up, that's what it did. And that's not good. Not good at all. Scared the hell out of me. That is a very scary thing to happen, and I had to look a bit deeper into working out what was wrong with it and why it was doing that, because that's not good. So that brought me around here to the working side of the machine to have a look at how it actually works. So you can see here that this flywheel is not directly connected to this center shaft. It runs separately. You can see this pin through here, and you can see the lug that's coming around here on the flywheel hits that pin, and that's what engages the flywheel with the shaft until it comes around to the bottom. And as it gets to the base, the pin hits this little cam here and gets disengaged, and that pulls the pin in and disengages it from the flywheel, so the flywheel can spin freely. When you hit your foot on the pedal, the pin re-engages and the flywheel comes around, grabs hold, and it goes through the whole cycle again. What was happening when I first got it was that pin was not retracting. That pin in there was staying engaged the whole time, and I had to do a bit of further investigating. So I went and worked out how to remove the pin, which is held on by this plate on the back of the shaft, just with a couple of flathead screws. And inside we have a spring. So when I finally got the pin out, I realised that I'd only got half of it out, and this part was still stuck in. So you can see the pin here. Basically, as it comes around, the tongue grabs hold of that and pulls the pin back, and that's how it engages and disengages. And this end had come off. So what I had to do was I had to grind it back, and I actually ground it all back and TIG welded it back together again, and it seems to be holding so far, which is good. I put it all back together again, oiled it up nicely, so put the spring back in, reinstalled it, and it kept doing the same thing. It would just be a runaway guillotine. I could actually get it so when I turn it off, it would stop. and it worked. It was sort of, you could start it up, the flywheel would just spin. It was nice and quiet. Nothing happened until you pressed the foot on the pedal. And as soon as I pressed the foot on the pedal, it would just keep going again. It would just keep going and wouldn't stop. And I couldn't, for the life of me, work out what the issue was, because everything here seemed to be working the way it was intended. So when I came back around here, I realized what was happening. When this flywheel was coming all the way around and the pin was being disengaged by this tooth, there was too much momentum in the center shaft. It would just go past the tooth, the pin would come back out again, re-engage with the flywheel, and it would just keep engaging all the time. So I actually ended up having a look further on this shaft. And that brought me to this end of the machine. And as you can see, the flywheel's down the other end. This is the far end of the shaft. And what I'd noticed was that this here is, as you can see, is basically, it's a clamp. And this arm of the clamp was broken through. It was old cast iron. So I heated it up quite a bit and managed to weld it back together again. I actually did it twice, because I did it the first time, I just welded it back together again. As soon as I clamped it up, it broke. So I heated it up a lot, and I added these gussets in on either side. So there's a couple of gussets on either side that help reinforce it. And basically what this thing does is it's got a leather strap around inside it. And as you tighten this down, it clamps onto this center shaft so that this shaft doesn't free run and slip past that tooth, and it will just fire once. So you have to get enough tension on this, and that's why it's got this spring here. It's adjustable, so you just have to adjust it till you get it the right tension, and then it will just fire once, and all is good. And with all that sorted out, this was the result. You can hear a nice running motor, running nice and quietly, and if I hit the pedal, one nice cut. Sometimes it runs twice, but I'm happy enough with that. So for the top surface, I just gave the blades a bit of a clean with steel wool. They're all adjustable. There's actually bolts on the back of this blade to sort of keep it so that it's nice and square and a nice tight fit with the lower blade. And you've also got this safety guard here that somebody's made up at some stage. I don't think this is the original one that came with it, but it's just a piece of angle iron, some slots cut out with a bit of sort of rod welded on the back of it so you can see through it, and that just slots in either side like so. It's not the greatest fit, and it often gets knocked out of here by the guillotine itself, so that's something I might have to play with and remedy, but it works fantastically. Kel also had these extensions still that bolt on here. So there's two of them, and you can just support longer sheets, which is fantastic. So everything was still intact and working on this old thing. So I hope that was interesting to some of you. This is a fantastic piece for the workshop. I love these really old machines. They were just built to last back then. They last forever. It lives. This, I'm sure, will live another 100 years without a problem. Yeah, it's just, they're built tough. I hope you enjoyed that. It's something a little bit different for me, but I'm going to get a lot of good use out of this. So if you're enjoying the stuff, you know, do all the stuff, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. See you guys.